Okay, I'm going to think that all of you can see the screen because I can see it here. So I'm going to start. Yes. Okay, thank you. So this is part of my thesis for my PhD, and it is called Decoding Queerness in Kids Cartoons. I'm going to start. First of all, I want to talk about what's the influence of television in childhood. For generations, cartoons have been used as a means for teach children lessons that are hard to explain through topics that are, well, through stories that are easy to assimilate by them. Also, they are used to teach culture, history, and ideology. Teach children about socialization and how to react to daily life situations. For example, we can see little cartoons that they tell to children like, you need to share with other children, you need to be nice, you need to have friends, and many other things. And they learn those situations. Also, it teach them to defeat fears, but also teach them what to fear. It's like you need to fear to this situation. If you are through something, you need to feel these kind of feelings. Also, it's used to differ between good and evil, and to identify themselves with their heroes on a screen. And this is like my main topic in here. Now, this is a difference of how queer characters are changed in Western animation. For example, if we see in 1990, we have him in Powerpuff Girls that is reflected as a villain. Like he's similar to a devil, and all the way that he looks is like a devil. And then we have Shiro in Voltron in 2016, that he is the hero, he's a leader. Can you delete 4 of the 5 screen? Okay, I don't understand how to delete 4 of the 5 screens.
So there is probably a sharing issue. It's okay. If anybody wants to have a single screen in the top right corner of the presentation, there should be a full screen button so you can see just one of the screens. But for now, we unfortunately are going to have to leave it because we are strapped for time.
Okay, so this is how the characters have changed with the time. In one part we have villains, and in the other part we have the hero. So what was the purpose with my topic, with my thesis? Is I want to observe the stereotypes used in the representation of queer characters using Western animation between 1990 and 2019, whose public are children and young people. I want to know what's the message this character expressed through the stereotypes used in them, and if the discourse has changed between one time and the other. So my work has some similarities with the celluloid closet. I don't know if you already know it, but it is a work initiated by Vitor Russo and subsequently taken by Rob Epstein and Jeffrey Friedman. They documented queer characters screened in Hollywood cinema in a period of 100 years of cinematography. So I pretend to document the queer characters screened in Western animation aimed at children between the years of 1990 and 2019 to observe the evolution of these characters through the vision of society. Some examples, we have Red Guy in Cow and Chicken in 1997, Dean Tallblatt and Squid Hat in The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy in 23. But in this part, we have a positive representation. They got married, and it's like, oh my God, yes, they are gay, but they are not humans. They are still monsters. So we lost a little bit of this humanization. Then we have Marceline and Princess Bubblegum. That is like a whole roller coaster of the relationship in Adventure Time starting on 2010. I use part of the Bechdel test that, if you don't know, it is a test based in 3 questions and lately a 4th question that it says, like, does your movie have at least 2 female characters? Yes or no. Do they talk to each other? Yes or no. Do they talk about something other than a man? Yes or no. If the answer is no to any of these questions, then it failed the test. So that means that the female characters are not represented in function of themselves, but instead they are something extra for the development of the male character. The fourth question that was added was the female characters who interact, do they have names? And that is a really important part. So I modified the Bechdel test and I use it like, are there at least 2 queer characters? Do they interact? Do they have names? And my fourth question was, is it express their sexuality or gender expression openly? Because I think that this is important to let the public know that a character is queer and not queer coded. It's not like just make you think that he or they are, but to tell you that they are queer. So, answering the first 3 questions, it is determined if the queer characters are represented in function of themselves or they are an extra character on screen. For example, like the gay best friend for the female character, no? Then, the fourth question is used to catalog the characters as openly queer or instead if they are portrayed as queer coded. For example, in this place, I put El Topo and Lechebre in Carmen Sandiego in 2019 because they were queer coded at the beginning of the series, but lately they were confirmed as queer characters. But at the time of this investigation, they were only queer coded. Then I divide them in the dichotomy of good and evil. And I use 4 fields to divide the characters. For main characters, the hero or heroine are the villain antagonist. So a hero or heroine will be a character considered like hero or the heroine of their world. It doesn't matter that the setting is not like a hero and a villain, but instead for their actions. And a villain antagonist is a character who is responsible for hindering the situation for the main character. And here I have some examples like Estiboni in Steven Universe, like a hero heroine, and a villain or antagonist will be the Grumble in How Real Monsters. For minor characters, I divide them between positive or negative representations. It doesn't matter how short the presentation in screen is, the queer characters are represented as positive if they present positive stereotypes like Oscar and Wilde in George and Martha, or if they are negative like they were presented on screen with negative stereotypes or their purpose was to make mock of them. It also includes non-recurring characters that can be seen as villains. How were these categories determined? I use these 3 questions. Is this a recurring character? Yes or no. Is this character represented as a villain antagonist? Yes or no. Is this character used as a mean of mockery or are used negative, exaggerated representation toward their sexuality or sexual orientation or gender expression? Yes or no. According to these answers, they were divided in the different categories. So, for this, I studied 28 animated series that were compiled with a total of 56 queer characters and queer coded characters. But what I really care is this, like the numbers. If we check, we can see like in here, 1990 to 1999, we have 14 queer coded characters, but instead only 1 queer openly character. In 20 to 29, we have 3 queer characters against 6 queer coded characters, and still we have more queer coded characters. Sorry, but in the lately years we have a lot of queer and queer coded characters, and now 22 of them are openly queer. So it's like a big jump, and I really get interested in this, why the numbers change and how. So in this, I divide them by categories, like this count correspond to the characters presented according to its premiere date. And we have like 7 negative characters in the first decade. In the second, we have still more negative representations and in minor characters. But on 2010, we start with 14 hero and heroine characters and 11 positive representations against 5 negative and 3 villain antagonists. So this is a big turnaround of the numbers. Also, I make this. that it is like exactly the same numbers, but instead is the according to their date of transmission. Like in here, if you can see, it changed from 7 to 3 because the characters that were in the series of Johnny Bravo, they were presented between the years of 20,000 and 29 instead of the 90s. But still, we have more heroes and positive representations in the last decade. So why the increase in queer characters? This is for pinkwashing and queerbaiting. There are two marketing practices to have influenced the rise of queer characters in animation in recent years. We can see it, for example, in pinkwashing. It's something that companies use a lot, especially on cinema. For example, the Fu in, sorry, this is in Spanish, but The Beauty and the Beast. So they speak in favor of queer community, but they don't make a real effort for supporting them. In this case, the cinema or television is demonstrated during the promotion of a film and before its release. At this time, actors, actresses, or the production itself make statements stating that we will find a story that reflects a gay couple, or lesbian, or trans character, and they promise everything. But this is later cut from the final scene and it ends in queerbaiting or pinkwashing, like showing a representation that is not openly pronounced, but it is only left to the interpretation of the audience that they say, like, yes, in Le Fou, we are going to have a development and this character is going to be shown as gay, but at the end, it didn't work. We didn't see any of that. Also, we can see queerbaiting, that this marketing technique is also known as LGBTQ plus fraud or bait. It consists of creating sexual or romantic tension between two characters of the same sex without they intending to develop the plot between them. The situations shown to the public make them think that said character is not straight. However, nothing is ever pronounced or resolved around these characters in question. This practice can also be easily confused with fan service. In here, I use Voltron because they say, like, okay, they use a little bit of pinkwashing, like we are going to have Shiro, like a gay representation. It's like, oh my god, gay, yay, great. But it was queerbaiting because we were thinking of Shiro with a relationship that was going to be shown. But at the end, no, it's just like a jump. And yes, Shiro had a lover. Pretty good. And then Shiro is married. Okay, we didn't see anything. We don't see a development of his relationship. It's just like, is there? It's like a checklist that they want to say, okay, yes, we show a gay character. Great. So the conclusions for this is that it is interesting to see how queer characters have increased as time progresses and how they invert the connotations used in them. While in the 1990s, queer characters were almost forgotten and in 2000 were portrayed in a negative way, in 2010 they jump into leading roles. Sorry, they become heroes and heroines with whom the public can empathize. So that is basically my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any question, I'm going to read it right now.
We actually have a Q&A function, so
Mhm.
if anybody wants to go into the chat where at the very top it says chat participants Q&A, y'all can submit your questions and upvote them because we have about like a half hour left, so we could do a half hour
Okay.
for questions if anybody wants. So start submitting those questions. I have a question for
Yes.
you. So did you primarily look at cartoons that were produced in the United States, or did you do any international cartoons in your study?
No, only the ones that were produced in United States, because this is part of my PhD thesis. So I'm using them because I'm from Mexico. So I'm using the cartoons that were created in United States, but they were released also in Mexico because it's like the vision that we have in the Western. Because if I use it international, I can talk about BL, I can talk about Danme, but they have a different way of portray the relationship between the same sex. So it is not what I'm intended to do. Also, I want to talk about what is the representation that is presented to children, because it's the moment that they are telling you this is good and this is bad. Like, for example, I'm watching The Old House, and the relationship between Amity and Luz is like, oh my God, I could never imagine this when I was a kid. It's like, this is something like, I don't know, it's so wholesome at this moment, and it's something that I would like to watch when I was a child, sorry.
No, you're good.
So,
Okay, so
yeah,
we
yeah.
have 5 upvotes on the question. What has been your
Your
favorite
favorite
examples?
examples of positive
Yeah.
representation in your research? Okay, I think that there are a lot of positive representation like lately, but my favorite are the ones that are created from queer creators. Because, for example, if we see Steven Universe, I like the representation, but we still have a little bit of censorship because I don't know, people is not ready apparently, or they are like, they don't want to lose their public internationally. So they, I don't know, they don't develop the characters as good as they could do it. Also, if we see representation, for example, in series created by Netflix or other like streaming platforms, they are better presented than instead if we use, for example, Cartoon or Nickelodeon or any other Disney channel. I don't know. They are like streaming platforms that are like a private way of working is more open when talking about queer characters. So I think that the ones that are created, for example, they are talking about Shira, season 5 was released in 2020. How did you count or not count those characters? That is a little bit of that. I I took them. I took them for my study, and I used them as queer characters, the ones who were represented as queer characters. For example, I use Shira and Katra, but this is something that I was talking with I forgot how to say it in English. I'm so sorry, but the person who is in charge with me
Your
with my thesis.
supervisor?
Yes, thank you for the word. My supervisor. I talk about with them, and they told that it was okay that I can use them because I started talking about this TV show when at the time that they broadcast. So I use them. I count them as queer characters, and yes, they are in the counting. So, will the international releases complicate your test? Yes, yes, they will complicate a lot my thesis. In fact, I said, okay, I'm going to study Western animation in from these years. And for example, I told you they were 28. Let me, just let me, here, 28 animated series. But for my actual thesis, this is like just a research I made to choose the three that I'm going to really study in my thesis, because I can't use many TV series because then my thesis will be like so long. I need to go shorter. So I'm choosing three from the 90s, and I'm going to choose three from the 2010s. From the 90s, I'm using Cow and Chicken. I'm using Hey Arnold. And because there is like only one queer character, but it is a positive representation, so I want to use it. And from the 2010s, I'm using The Legend of Korra, She-Ra, and Steven Universe. Was danger and next one of the shows you look at? It managed to have both implied and objective. No, in fact, I didn't use that one. I think that is one of the shows that I missed because there are a lot of shows. So I try to study as many as I can, but there is also a lot of TV shows that I couldn't check all of them. I would really like to check that one. if I have the opportunity. Also, as I'm checking the ones that were broadcasted in Mexico, I don't remember that show here in Mexico, to be honest. So, no. Did you notice a trend with the type of characters being shown in certain channels or companies? For example, were there more antagonists, negative representation from bigger companies? Yes. Yes. In fact, if, as I told you, if we are going to private streaming like Netflix or Amazon or any other that was, well, they do it like for private, for a private public, like you need to pay to look at it. There are more positive representations. But if we see like Cartoon Network, Disney, or in the 90s Nickelodeon or something like that, there's more negative representation, or maybe not negative representation, but they are queer coded instead of openly queer. So yeah. Any other question?
When will this be published?
Okay, as is part of my thesis, I finished my doctorate degree on 2022. So that will be the time that is going to be like completely released. So I hope that I can continue with this, because I'm planning to study like each character of the shows that I'm choosing individually, and talk about their stereotypes, and talk about the representation and how they reflect the vision of society towards queer people.
Just a preview on one of the characters that you want to study and how they fit the vision.
Okay. As I told you, I want to study like in the 90s, like Red Guy, and in Powerpuff Girls, him. These two characters are like my main, because we have him and he's like the villain. He's the evil itself. It's like, and also I really get interested in this modulation of their voice. Like it is feminine when Kim is talking to the Powerpuff Girls and is like, "Oh yes, you should do this. Look at here, come here," and it is so sweet and it is feminine. But in the moment that Kim becomes evil, his voice changed and it is like strong and masculine, and you won't tell me what to do, and it's like, oh my god, I really like this. So that is one of the characters that I want to study. And also Red Guy, because Red Guy is all the showing Cow and Chicken and I Am Whistle is like mockery around everything, but the way that Red Guy is portrayed is like gross, is disgusting, and that is what they want to show to the public. Like, is this character queer coded because sometimes we see like with dresses and acting like a woman, and sometimes acting like a man, but he's disgusting in a show that all is shown like walking with their asses and showing things that are gross. He's the grosser. It's like, oh my god. And in the positive way, I want to talk about Hey Arnold, because we have this character like the teacher that is queer coded by the time, because they never say nothing openly, but it has positive representation. It's like the one who is always helping his students, and I like his representation, so that's why I choose it. And
Mr. Simmons writes.
Mr. Simmons, yeah. Also, I would like to make in that way. I also choose Hey Arnold because I can make that little blink of, in the 90s he was queer coded, but then the movie released and he is queer. So what have changed? It changed the time. Like now we can say yes, it was not a friend, but instead it was his couple. So that is something that I also would like to mention. Okay, there is my favorite queer character. Oh my god. I don't know. I don't know because I really like, for example, I can say that in the 90s, that is the time that I grew up, I really love villains in general. So him is one of those villains that I really liked because it was like he was evil, but he was powerful and fancy, and I like his boots and the way he dressed, and it was scary, but at the same time, I really like him. And if we tell something like more from these times, I will say that right now, it doesn't matter that it's not in my thesis, Amity and Luz. Right now, I really like Amity and Luz from the old house because I don't know, it's so wholesome. All the relationship and everything is like so nice. And I really like the way they are developed, like little by little, and all it's all this teenage drama that we can see in any other TV show, but it's like now make it gay and it is better for me. So I think that right now Amity and Luz are one of my favorite good representations in cartoons.
Amazing. All right, we have about like 10 minutes left. So again, if anybody has any burning questions, haha, get it? Like him, burning questions. You can put that in the Q&A.
Q&A?
Yeah. You can take this time to say, hey, y'all, if you don't have anything that you're doing after this, please sure that you check out the exhibitor hall and go to all the levels. So we have, panels and tables happening on levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. So make sure to check all of them out. Give all the artists some love. We got another Q&A. Would you look at cartoon movies ever?
Okay, what?
Not
Would
just
you look
TV
at
shows.
cartoon movies? Yes, I watch the cartoon movies, but I don't use them for my case of studies because then it will be bigger my thesis. So that is the reason why I didn't use them. Because yes, in fact, I would really like to make like this statement of Disney movies, like almost all the villains have something like queer coded, starting with Ursula in the Little Mermaid, that we can relate Ursula with a drag queen, actual person. So yeah, it's something like we can see it on Scar and in other characters that they have something that make us relate villains to something queer coded. So it's like also Disney telling us that queer is bad. Well, in the 90s, like lately, they take another direction, but in the 90s, we have all these like queer is bad. Also, I really like a comment that Harley made in here, like 90s queer coded villains just made us all obsessed with dramatic high fashion antagonists. And yes, that is true. Maybe that's why I really love villains. It doesn't matter if it is an anime or a cartoon or anything, I'm in love with villains. Any other question?
Can you share where we can find you on social media? Do you have any?
Oh, yes. It's, in fact, I just made one lately, but I'm going to type it on the chat. It's an Instagram.
Amazing. So we will all give you some love and support you while you are making your
Yes.
thesis. Love
Thank you.
it.
It is new, so I don't have many things because I have like my artist because I also draw. So it's my artist media, but I say no, I don't want to have like my artist media together with my things I don't know about the thesis or something like it's more serious. So
totally get that. But I thought you were also saying that this is like new research, and I think it's amazing that you're
Yes.
time to do all this research because it doesn't exist. And I think it's so important that you are, putting your hat in the drawing or name in the bucket at least to be a part of the research that is coming, which is amazing. And as an educator, I can't thank you enough for doing all of this stuff.
Thank you so much. In fact, I don't know. I have many years thinking about doing a PhD, and I was like so insecure. I was like, what I'm going to investigate about? What is something that I'm really passionate about? So I started thinking about this topic, and I was like, I'm not sure if they are going to accept me, but however, I'm going to go. And they accepted. And in fact, everybody's telling me like, I really love your topic because nobody's talking about this in Mexico. So I found some things in United States. In United States, we can find some theses about this topic, but in Mexico, it's like no one is talking about this. Okay, will you draw pieces to accompany your thesis? I would really like to do that, Kai. In fact, but I don't know if my supervisor is on the same page with me. Because that is something that also is really important, like my supervisors. Also, maybe like when they approve it and they say like, yes, everything is great, I can say, okay, now I'm going to go by my side and do all this with my drawings and everything. In fact, that will be something really nice. Thank you for the idea, Kai.
You could do like little diagrams of their like brains, and you could say what's in their brain, queerness. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh my goodness. All right, so let's give Rossy one more like round of applause in the chat. You can like give claps, you could give emojis. Oh yeah, I see some people giving claps in the stage. Again,
Thank you.
reminder that if you do want to leave this panel room, you need to press the back button on your browser. Or if you're like me, I have a fancy mouse, I just press the back thing there. Or you can press the hamburger icon at the top left corner, right next to where it says Remo. And that'll take you back to like my events, and that's how you can get back to the exhibitor hall. And also make sure you check out the other rooms too. There are a bunch of artists. Are you tabling Rossy with your art or no?
No, at this time I'm not. But
Okay.
I will really like to do it in another
Next
time.
year. Next
Yeah.
year we're in person. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for the panel, and everybody have a great rest of your day. I'll see you later.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on, even if you were having internet issues. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Of course. Enjoy the rest of your day.
you. The same for you.
Oh
Bye
yes.
bye.
Bye.